This podcast is part of the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network.
AvenuePodcast.net.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It's time for another fun episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast, and I just want to say thank you to everyone here listening right now. Whether this be your first time or if you've been listening for a long time, I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in this week to listen to this show. As you know, I like to call it a podcast about nothing, where I have conversations with interesting people, and that's exactly what I do here today. I am talking with Jeremy Haun. He is a comic book artist out of the Southwest Missouri area, and he's worked with DC and Marvel and Image, and you name it, he's worked with them. He's done some amazing stuff over the years, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode that I have here with him today. We get into some deep subjects to the point where we're like, whoa, what are we doing? But it's an overall great conversation, and I think you guys are going to have a really great time hearing it. And for those of you who are here just to listen to the Jeremy Haun episode, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of the other great episodes that I have here as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.
You're bloody welcome!
You know?
Hey, Dad.
If I get my hand stuck in a pickle jar, I'm straight up bull in a china shop, just swinging around.
Started writing songs when I was about 12 or so.
Seriously?
They're retrofitting me now.
And I'm like, yes, finally.
We also had the opportunity to go train with Hoist Gracie and Dan Severin.
Wow.
I like that. That's different. It stands out.
That day I took my very first bump and it was fun.
There's only one section to go to first.
Yeah.
Toys.
Bro.
I was like, no, man, surely this guy's not booked out that long.
I haven't laughed that hard since I was a little girl.
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
And just a reminder before we get started here, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to iGadap wherever it is you're listening to. Hit that notification bell so you are notified when a new episode drops. Also, make sure that you go out there and rate and review this episode. Tell me what you think of it. And the more people that do that, the more likely I am to be recommended to somebody else. Now, on to the show. All right, everybody. So I've been talking to my guest that I have today a few minutes before, and I believe this is going to be a really fun conversation. He is a comic book writer and artist. He's based out of Missouri. I met him at ArtCon a few months ago, and he's worked with different companies like Image Comics, IDW, Marvel, DC, Top Cow, and quite a few other ones as well. And I'm very excited to talk with him tonight. And I'm talking about Jeremy Haun. Man, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Man, it's we're just going to kind of jump right into this and everything. And we met at ArtCon. Was that your first time being there?
No. I've actually, look, Neosho ArtCon is just right down the road from me. I live in Joplin, Missouri.
Right.
It's, I spent a large chunk of my youth bouncing around Neosho and getting into trouble. And the fact that they have, it's such a wonderful little vibrant art community there, and one that looked at comic book conventions and pop culture and was like, let's do that, and even though Joplin is a much bigger city, the thing that we've got around that's actually a great bit of community and a lot of fun is Neosho ArtCon. So we did.
Right. That was my first time being there. I actually came with a comic book company that after I left there, I'm actually working with them now. I came to just do a panel with them. I'd made friends with them at another con that I went to. And now I'm doing their social media and everything like that. So I really enjoyed it. It was a cool experience. Like you said, I didn't expect it. I saw that it was in Neosho, and I know Neosho. I'm not too far from there myself, but when I got there, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And, to see the amount of people that actually came to this smaller con was really awesome.
It's just, I think it's a testament to the idea that people want cool things. We want community. There's such a you know, nerddom is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And we're all, ravenous for more of these things that we love. And I think that sometimes you run into these situations where, you get communities, like in Southwest Missouri, Northwest Arkansas, all the four-state area here,
Yeah.
where some people can't ever get to Chicago for C2E2 or San Diego for Comic Con, or
Right.
even to Kansas City for Planet. Some people, it's just not in the books
Right.
for whatever reason. And I think the idea that we can have regional conventions that still give a rich, interesting experience is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I mean, and you see the people come out in the cosplays and everything, just like you would see at a big one. And I really like that you're talking about the community and things. And it's one thing I like about where I'm at here. We're actually this weekend it's not nerd based or anything, but we're having what they call Mudtown Days, and they're doing like an actual free concert there. And actually, they're going to do two of them. One of them is going to be a local band, and then I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but Mark Chestnut is actually doing a free concert in the park there that evening. So it's really cool. I love seeing small communities come together and do festivals and events.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I mean, it's a reminder that look, you said you're doing social media yourself, and so right now, and so you have intimate understanding about how complex and personal yet impersonal social media can be.
Yeah.
The idea that you can go and go to a convention, be it a small one or a large one, whatever it is, just the idea that you can do everything from like meet your favorite creator or actor, or go and see live music. It's such a wonderful thing in a time where sort of the thing that was supposed to bring us together made things a little bit more impersonal.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I do want to ask a few things talking about comics, because most of what I have here is just, I wanted to have a conversation with you. We actually talked about it whenever we met at ArtCon. Probably we're not going to talk about anything too problematic. I did send that as a joke, I think, in the email, whatever I was going to bring you on, said we were going to talk about all the problematic things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to comics, was this something that you knew at a young age that you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was terrifying to my mom. She I kind of had this weird thing where I was just like, hey, I want to tell stories. I remember one of my earliest memories, and this, I mean, like I probably would have been like 4 years old, sitting at a little table and taking silly putty, which I don't know if kids know what that is. It's like a putty kind of thing where, but you could take it and put it on newsprint and transfer off whatever was on there.
Yeah.
And so I would stick it onto comic books and peel it back, and the faces of Spider-Man or whatever it was would be on a little bit of the ink would transfer to the silly putty.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I can just draw that. And so I'd take a crayon and sort of draw my own version of whatever it was. And I spent my entire life sort of telling little stories and drawing little stories and doing all these things. And I think it was a thing that like was probably adorable whenever I was, between 4 and 7 years old. But like, when I was 17 and 18 years old, telling my mom, she's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to draw comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and it was always that, look, I'm old enough now, and I actually have 2 teenage boys, and, when you're 19 years old, 18 years old, you think you know everything in the world, and you know enough, but probably just enough to be dangerous to yourself.
Right.
But like, I was like, yeah, I want to make comics. And my mom's response to that was always like, well, you should be a teacher, you should get a teaching certificate.
Yeah.
And my smart ass answer was always like, was always like, hey, backup plans are for people that are willing to fail.
Oh, I like that.
And that is so disrespectful to anybody that actually has a backup plan or does the thing the right way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
it was a signal to myself that like if I did things the right way, I could do whatever I set my mind to.
Right.
And that's been a tenet of my career since then. Everything that I've ever done, all these accomplishments are based around setting a goal for myself and not really giving myself an option outside of success, and look, it's not always made my life easier, There's a lot of things where I'm like, ugh, it would be nice to just be able to be like, I don't want to do that, or I can't do that right now. But yeah, that's not who and what I am as a person.
Well, I mean, it's helped you to strive to be, I mean, you've had a lot of success when it comes to, comics and things like that. I mean, I believe even during COVID, you were still, drawing away, and you came up with a whole anthology during that time. There was no stop for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be real. Some of that's just because I'm weird, but
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, like, I'm not going to prescribe, like a comparison to like a shark or something cool, but like, I think there is a thing where like when you hear people say like, that person's got the bug, right? Like they've got the creative curse or blessing, however you want to look at it. But like,
yeah.
Like I think it's often a double-edged sword. I think that you go into things and you're like, I need to tell stories. I need to talk about myself and the world around me in these kind of fascinating, fun ways. I regularly talk about the idea that there's always the thing that a story is about, and then the thing that the story is about, like truly the bigger picture. You can have a story that's about, two giant robots fighting in the middle of the ocean, on one hand, but it actually can be a story about, understanding your limitations as a person or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah. So I don't know, that's a lot of what I try to do. It's just I try to tell stories because I need to tell stories.
I like that. I mean, sometimes there's just a desire and you need to fulfill that. There is something that came to mind, and this is going to be a little nerdy on my point, which is okay because this is, a Geeky Dad podcast. And there's a saying that I have heard. It was on Arrow, and it was a Russian phrase or something like that. And I'm going to butcher it, but I'll tell you what it means afterwards. And it was akula kontaranyet stranyet toinyet. And it said, if a shark that does not swim drowns, and I really liked that saying. It's always stuck with me. And it's that you've always got to keep pushing forwards, or otherwise you're going to die in that. And even if it's in your creative side, if you don't continue to push forwards in it, then that creative side won't be there anymore.
I believe that, there is something about telling stories that is so connective.
Yes.
And I look, I'm like you always, you don't want to slide into pretension with all this stuff sometimes, but like, and I'm such a, like I'm always going to say, I make funny books for a living. I'm an entertainer in a lot of ways, but like for as long as humans have been kicking around this rock, we have told stories to one another in various ways. We told histories, we told slightly made up histories. We've told, stories of compassion and good and evil and all these things. And I think being able to sort of take part in that is a wonderful thing. But I think understanding too that like some people, it's just it's compulsion. It's like you have to.
Yeah.
Making the thing as part of who I am.
Right.
And celebrating that in myself. And like you talked about, I during the pandemic and when we were all locked down, I was sitting on my couch going a bit nuts because there's only, like, let's be real, there's only so much TV you can watch,
right?
So much whiskey you can drink, and so much bread you can bake during that. And I did all those things with aplomb, but I also was like, when comics went pencils down, none of us knew what we were doing for 6 months around there.
Yeah.
I was set. 2020 was supposed to be one of the busiest years of my career. I had a project that was locked that I was drawing, and it was going to be really cool. I had 2 projects that I was writing, and suddenly for a moment, everybody was like, "Hey, we can't do this right now." And it might be, like the project that I was drawing, which is in a lot of ways how I make the lion's share of my living.
Yeah.
I went from it being, hey, this is going to come back in 6 months, to, hey, this is going to come back in 8 months, maybe. And then, hey, this is not coming back. And if I had waited all of that time, I would have lost my so much time and so much. I mean, I would have lost my mind, to be perfectly honest with you.
Definitely. There was a lot of people that did during that time. I mean, I'll even say this. I was somebody who had no problem sitting down and watching TV for a very long time. I was a bit of a couch potato. And then COVID happened, and I started realizing this is a little boring now. And I wanted to find new things to do because, like you said, there's only so much that you can do of one thing. You hear it with, you have a favorite food and you eat so much of it, you're going to get sick of it eventually if it's not, treated as like a treat or something. So whenever we didn't have anything to do and all we could do is veg out and scroll through TikTok, you got very bored really quick. Kind of mind rot almost.
No, absolutely. And I think that that's a thing sort of that, we all are wired in very different ways. And I think the realization I had was very specifically that, like, I need something to do, and like, let's be very realistic about it. The way that we all deal with stuff, it's everything's a bit, a spectrum, right?
Yes.
Like, I think I probably could have kept doing, playing video games with my boys and watching TV and making bread and drinking whiskey. But, like, I think that there would have probably been a real dark place that I could have hit if I had just focused on that. If I had just been that.
Yeah.
And I ended up telling 28 stories that sort of were about the things that I was feeling and dealing with, that we all were dealing with during this time. But I made them into monster stories, and I made them entertaining. They were weird. They were fun. They were science fiction and post-apocalyptic fun landscapes.
Yeah.
And those things in a way were my therapy during that. And I think that they saved me. But they also brought out something else in me that I realized, and there is a thing. I've been incredibly fortunate in my career. I've written and drawn the icons of my youth. When you start out in comics, you do this thing. You say, like, hey, if I can just get one comic book out there onto the shelf,
right,
I've done my thing.
Right.
And then you do that, and then you're like, if I could just get one series, and you do that. And then you're like, if I could just, if I could just draw Batman, and then you do that.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes on and on, and you kind of keep moving the goalpost in more, ridiculous and often interesting ways, but you keep moving that goalpost.
Right.
But there's a thing where like you realize as time goes by, and I mean this with nothing but love and respect for Marvel and DC and Image and all of the wonderful companies that I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to bet on yourself.
Right.
And especially creatively.
Yeah.
These two buddies of mine, guys that I kind of came up with, told me, this guy knew he was telling me about this book that he was going to do.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, yeah, he's like, well, I'm a horror guy, and he's like, I love zombies. We're into this book, and it's about like people sort of surviving the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
And trying to go on. And so, my buddy Tony Moore was talking about The Walking Dead.
Yes.
And they bet on themselves. They told a story their way, and they did that, and it changed their lives, and as fans of these things became part of storytelling forever.
Yes, definitely.
And that's a huge thing. And I think that like while I love drawing Captain America and Iron Man and Batman and Batwoman and John Constantine and Black Adam and all these great characters that I've had the opportunity to work on.
Right.
The idea that I could actually tell my own stories my way, and it's not about control. It's literally about getting your voice and the things that matter to you and are important to you and that you just love on your own terms out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you own those things. That's extra special. And I think that if you look at the best things out there, they're just based around somebody having fun. And that's all I do. I just want to have fun.
Well, I mean, if you're not having fun, though, I mean, then it kind of loses its magic, and sometimes you do have to step away from it, but if you're not having fun, then maybe it is time to do something different. But, I mean, when it's there, it's there. You can almost feel it. It's the same way with music. I'm a big music guy, play a bunch of different instruments and stuff. And if you don't feel it, the people who are listening are going to feel that as well, then it's almost like you put your heart into something, you bear your soul on it, and that's with any type of art.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that, I think that we kind of get a little bit dismissive sometimes of the creative process and why people work the way they do and how things work. And we don't always understand that, so like you get terms like phoning it in, right?
Yeah.
And I both believe that people can phone it in,
right.
But I also believe that there's often more behind that than we see or understand.
Yeah.
I don't actually believe that most kind of talking about earlier that like most people are really trying their best. Most people really want things to be okay,
Yeah.
And I don't believe that anybody is actually really intentionally trying to not tell a good story. I just think that sometimes good stories don't get to happen the way we or they want them to. It's a complex world.
Yeah.
With a lot of stuff. And I think that the reasons that we tell stories and what we're trying to do is often, in spite of us, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm losing my train of thought here because I'm trying to balance out too many things at once. But I think that most people are really trying to tell good stories, and I think that that as time goes by, um, yeah, I've lost my train of thought, man. I apologize.
You're good.
I made such a convoluted story that I lost where I was. But basically, people care. People are trying to do good stuff. That's
They
what
do. Yeah. But I mean, and that's where it all starts is, when they're trying. So I don't know how I want to word that. They, I really don't know how to word it. Like you said,
did we go like super deep? Is this like the weird, oddly deepest thing that you've done?
it's getting there, man. But that's okay. I like having.
Are like, why is he crying?
That would be a first. I haven't had anybody cry per se on the show. I've had some people tell some stories that might make you cry, but I've never, because like the guy I just recorded with last night, I was telling you about, he did the live events as Barney, and so he was the one going into like the hospitals, and Barney was like the number one before John Cena. Barney was the number one for Make-A-Wish, and so he was telling stories, about going into these hospitals and knowing that the kids that he's talking to won't make it out of there, and so I was like, deep stories coming out here recently on this show. So but I love it. I love that where a conversation can go anywhere. That's the reason why I call it a podcast about nothing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I don't know. I feel like that sometimes you end up answering exactly the same kinds of questions with these things. And I respect the idea also that like every podcast that you do, every talk that you have, every interview that you do, even if you're sometimes answering similar questions in them, it's always somebody's first time, being, getting to meet somebody, being exposed to somebody.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, like we all want to share our stories and how we came to these things. And it's it can be a pretty universal thing, but yeah. So yes, and now I'm going to try to work up my here's I ugly cry. So if I cried on this podcast, people would just hear me just like it would be really, really embarrassing.
What's going on over there, man? You okay?
Yeah. In Goonies when Sloth is like like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I sound when I'm crying. So just your audience, I'm going to do my best not to do that, just to really, not weep openly and just bawl, ugly cry.
All right. Well, there's a first time for everything, but we'll try to shy away from the things now that will make you cry. We'll kind of go in a different direction here with this. Do you have any hobbies?
So one of the things that I'm reaching a point in my career where I'm having to actually re-examine some of that.
Okay.
Sitting at the art table drawing is kind of a 8, 10, 12, 14-hour day situation where you don't really have a lot of time for other stuff.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I write as much, if not more, than I draw, and I become very selective about the things that I'm drawing.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time that I used to have. And so recently I kind of at this point where I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not having to write for 5 hours a day and then draw for 9 hours a day. I can examine hobbies. The things that I've always loved, my boys and I build Lego together.
Nice.
When they were barely old enough to start building Lego, we started building Lego together. And there's a thing with kids where like you build these, I love it so much that like I end up deep diving. So I'm like, oh, I'll buy the big buildings, like all the city kits where like you're building like really involved, cool modular buildings, and
Yeah.
they're quite expensive and take a long time to build, and
Right.
you know, but then kids, when they're little, they're like into all of it. But then every 5-year-old has a moment where they're like looking around all of the buildings, these amazing, cars and buildings and sets and all these things, and they're like, what if I was Godzilla? And then they stomp everything into oblivion.
Oh no.
Yeah, so all these things that we worked on for years and years and years,
Yeah.
my boys thought it would be really funny to just stomp their way through it.
Oh no.
I have a lot of boxes filled with old Legos and like amazing sets, like stuff that just fantastic. But then, my boys are almost 15 and 19 right now.
Okay.
And recently, in the past couple years, they kind of came back around and they're like, you want to build Lego together? Because there's
That's
also that.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also like a really weird point in there where like, you think about it and you're like, where you stopped playing as a kid. Like play was such an important part up until, you're 11 or 12 years old. I remember for me, like I would have these epic like G.I. Joe Transformer massive battles, where like
Mm-hmm.
you'd have the War Duke from Dungeons and Dragons, fighting against, Destro kind of thing or whatever it was. And I played out these massive things and they were huge. And I remember one day I was like 11 years old and I was like I was like, this is stupid. It was just like I don't know, I'm gonna go do so I go ride my bike and then you meet, you start thinking about girls in a different way or
Right,
whatever,
right.
whatever your preference is there. But like,
Yeah.
like I was just like, it changed and I saw it change for my boys and I was like, well, this crap. Like this sucks. This is not, this is a bummer. Like this is our special thing.
Right.
So recently, the past couple of years, my boys both came back and they're like, hey, we love these too. So I just finished like the big Lion Knight's Castle, which is a huge, it's like the ultimate castle set from Lego. With my oldest, he was like, well, we always loved the castle sets together. He's like, and also they're really smart because they're like, hey Dad, will you buy the the $500
Yeah.
mega set that like, what if you bought that for us, kind of thing.
Smart. Yeah.
So I did that. I did that with my oldest, and then my youngest was like, well, so you got that for Ethan. What about if you got Rivendell for us to build? So
Cool.
I built the huge Rivendell set, and
Yeah.
we just got there's a Dungeons and Dragons set, a massive set that just came out, and they're like, well, what if we all work on that one? They're master manipulators, kids, but
Definitely.
so my hobbies really are building Lego. I also play video games with them.
Cool.
That's a lot of my stuff that I do that's hobby related is like just the relationship with my kids. We always like the same stuff, but the idea that I could play Fallout with them, or I can now that like play 76 all together, or like for forever during the pandemic we were all into Fortnite. We would play trios together and go around and shoot people in the head. That was really but and then my big boy hobby is I love making cocktails. I love making during the whiskey that I mentioned earlier. During the pandemic, we had like a little pod. We had like there was 5 of us, this friend group.
Yeah.
That we're like, we're not gonna hang out with anybody else. We're not gonna go anywhere. Let's meet around the fire pit.
Yeah.
So we built a fire pit at my house and then spent at least a solid year basically, just seeing really each other and our families together and And during that time, I perfected my old fashioned and a couple of cocktails, and kind of, I always enjoyed the process of making a really good drink.
Yeah.
I just kind of did more of a deep dive and really learned, kind of the science of it. And, there's all those, like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I feel like half the population got those master class things that
Yep.
they, and like, I was like, well, hey, it's on sale for $100. I'm going to go ahead and get these, and
Yeah.
you start learning about, like the process of, whether it's baking bread or mixology or whatever it is. There were all those things. And so, yeah, I just, I'd always been into it, but I made a deep dive of it and accidentally kind of became like the de facto bartender for our larger friend group now that we're all able to hang out. So, I have people come over and they're like, "Hey, like we should hang out." And you're like, "Yeah, that's great." And then they're like, "What if you made us a drink? That would be really nice." So,
So do you have like a nice little bar area now that you have kind of gotten into that?
yeah, yeah. Well, I live in the house that we have
Mhm.
is old, that one of the doctors. It's like
Okay.
built in 1890 here in Joplin.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
um, it's an old red brick house and kind of
Yeah.
really kind of spooky looking. But behind the house is a carriage house, and you know, originally it was built to house horses and carriages,
Right,
and
right.
at some point in the early 1900s, they moved on from that and retrofitted it, and it became a doctor's office.
Mm.
And that was a doctor's office until roughly like around 2000.
Oh, okay.
And it was, I mean, like the room that I am currently sitting in, we're having this conversation in,
Uh-huh.
was a doctor's office. People were born here. I'm sure some people died here.
Oh,
I take
wow.
lots of naps in here. There's no ghosty kind of stuff going on. So it's a fairly big space. So I have room to, yeah, I've got a library room for all my comics and, can nerd out. I've got this main room. It's pretty big. I work out of here. I have an assistant that I work with regularly, that helps me scan pages and do all of the important stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Keeps me on schedule. Um, but then there's a kitchen area. And in the kitchen area, I had a table in there that was like it was like a big kitchen table.
Okay.
And over time, it got more and more filled up with various scotches and bourbons and you know everything everything along the way.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago, we bought a proper like nice bar space and kind of did it right.
Fun.
And it's a lot of fun.
Do you prefer scotch or bourbon?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never been a one kind of thing person. Like
Yeah.
I never really understood why, like we have this human nature thing where it's like, I'm a this person or that
Right.
person.
Yeah.
You I love Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, like there's cool stuff with Star Trek and Star Wars. You
Yes,
know,
yes.
like there's just I don't know. I never was like. I mean, while I had periods of my life that I was more of a DC guy or a Marvel, like young
Yeah.
DC teenagers years Marvel stuff. But
Yeah.
like, I, I love both. Like I just so my initial thing was bourbon.
Uh-huh.
And I really got into it and did a deep dive. And then a buddy of mine gifted me a bottle of Lagavulin 16. And
Oh, okay.
if any of you have seen Parks and Rec,
Uh-huh.
Nick Offerman's character in the show has this love of Lagavulin 16.
Yes.
So, my buddy was like, "Here, try a little bit of this," and it was like the best things about a campfire, and I think it brought me back to my youth, sitting around, roasting marshmallows on the farm,
Yeah.
Over a fire kind of thing, and that was my introduction to Scotch, and which is weird because most people work their way into the peaty, smoky stuff. I just dove in, and I was like, "Well, this is for me." In fact, I actually in 2019 was invited to a couple of conventions. One was in Paris,
Okay.
and then 2 weeks later, there was in a city called Harrogate, which is like north of London.
Okay.
But Harrogate is midway between Scotland and like London. And so we went and we did. I took my boys. The whole family went. We did the tour of the convention in Paris. Then we got on and we went to London, and then we went north and we went to Scotland. And so we went to Islay, which is where all of the peaty Scotch comes from. So we we stayed in these storm pods, which are super cool. Look, if anybody is thinking about going to Scotland, check out Islay. It's this island where all of the great peaty Scotch goodness comes from. But we stayed in these, they were called storm pods. And storm pods are right on the bay, and they look like hobbit holes.
Oh, cool.
You're in these amazing little slightly underground huts.
Uh-huh.
And it's like I kind of hate the term glamping, but it's like glamping. It's a slightly buried hobbit hole.
Yeah.
And each one of them's named after a different distillery. But
That's cool.
Get up and we would do a walk. We were a quarter mile from Lagavulin one way, a half mile from Lafroig the other way, and then on back up about a mile from Ardbeg. So we went to all the distilleries and did the whole thing. And so my love of Scotch has only grown. We're actually literally having a conversation as a family about if we're going to go back to Scotland or Iceland this summer for vacation. So maybe
that'd be cool.
Yeah, maybe Scotland again.
Maybe you have to. Yeah, that I'm a little jealous there, but I'm gonna have to talk the wife into doing something like that. We never had a honeymoon per se, so maybe I can talk her into going over there for a honeymoon or something.
I think that's pretty doable. I think look, just get on Instagram and look up reels about Scotland.
Okay.
And there'll be all of these beautiful like drone footage shots.
Yeah.
Going down across, some nice beautiful loch, green lush stuff everywhere, a waterfall and mountains and all of that goodness. And
to show those to her.
She'll see it and she'll be like, not only am I going, I'm going to stay.
Oh.
And this will be the reason that you moved to Scotland.
So talking about all of these different beautiful pictures and stuff like that, it brings something to mind that I saw on your Instagram that I wanted to ask you about. You like to take pictures, it said on there. You're a little bit of a photographer?
A little bit, yeah. I was in this is telling you how old I am, but in 1985 I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And we were incredibly poor, like I was raised by a single mom who loved us dearly, but did everything she could. But we didn't have any money.
Right.
And we went to garage sale, and there was an Instamatic camera there. And I was fascinated by it. And I convinced my mom to give me $2 to buy this camera, not realizing at the time that you also have to buy film for it.
Right.
But it was one of those the ones that kind of look like it's like a plastic ice cream sandwich kind of.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. They kind of pop up too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just started taking pictures, and I always loved, I loved buildings, and I loved, like, a lot of my stuff is based around the world around me. I don't,
Yeah.
oddly, like, it's funny, we were talking about it. We're like, we don't really take a lot of pictures of our family,
Yeah.
but we take a lot of pictures of the world around us. And it's actually just fascinating with the fascination with the world around us.
Yeah.
More than anything. It's like that's the stuff that I always took pictures of. We'd be wandering somewhere, and I'd find like a burned out old house, and so I'd go inside, sneak inside and take pictures or whatever it was. And that just kind of always stuck, and it became this thing that I just did. I just loved to do, and me taking pictures, I think it was sort of this thing where I made a record of the strange beauty of the world around me. And
right.
And once Instagram came around, before it became the absolute idiot mess that it is now. When it started out, it was just a bunch of people taking pictures of stuff that they liked, and there were, you weren't trying to, like, I didn't have to dance.
Yeah.
When it started, like, there was no video. You just took pictures of cool stuff.
Yep.
And I loved it so much. It was so pure and it's so easy, and it sort of became this record. Like, people are always like, like, why do you take pictures of your food? And I'm like, oh, you think I do that for you? No, here's the deal. If I go back to New York, I want to know where I got the best pastrami sandwich in the world.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is go back and look at where that pastrami sandwich was, where I tagged it.
Right.
And I can go back and get another one.
There you go.
Or whatever. And so I loved that process. And there have been times, I have some friends that are brilliant photographers. I've got a friend, and she is such an amazing photographer at capturing both the world around her, but like mood and people and like the souls of people.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. But I still like doing it. So
right.
I'm never gonna say that I'm a photographer, but man, it's a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, and going back to one part that you said about like the burned out buildings and stuff, do you draw inspiration from that when it comes to the other side, when it comes to like drawing, and do you pull from those memories of those pictures and stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They become this. I mean, there's a lot of there. I remember I had the wonderful opportunity to go to Belgium, to a city called Ghent. And it's a medieval city in Belgium. It's just kind of up from France.
Uh-huh.
And I was walking along the streets, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like Gotham.
Yeah.
So I would take pictures of buildings, and I'd be like, oh, look at that gargoyle there. And
right.
Ended up drawing that gargoyle in Gotham City. Batman like perched on a thing, and it's from Belgium or whatever. And
that's cool.
I look at the world around me, and I kind of always run these things through this filter of like, oh yeah, this would make a really cool thing in Gotham, or this would make a really cool, creepy set piece for this or whatever. And And yeah, it's just this fascination with seeing the world around me, but also then wanting to replicate that or take an element for this and that. And I just last summer I did a book for DC, Black Adam book, and it took place in this like nightmare world.
Yeah.
And everything in that story like kind of came, it's like the city that he runs through is like this weird collection of, it'll be like, oh, this staircase here, and it was from Notre Dame, or this was from this place or that place, and I just mix them together in really fun ways, and it's entertaining to me. It's a commemoration of all of the things that I've seen and the places that I've gone, and
Yeah.
just a lot of fun.
Right on, right on. So what would you say is probably your proudest moment when it comes to all the art that you have created?
Wow, that's a probably the next one.
All right.
I think it's always that thing that like of like the way that things build, like over time.
Yeah.
I originally started out and I was, and I had editors talk to me and they were like, "Hey, you're a really, you're a great guy for interiors. You're good for drawing the interiors of comics."
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily, it's not malicious, but they just didn't necessarily think of me as a writer, and they definitely didn't think of me as a cover artist. I needed to learn how to be a cover artist.
Okay.
But it's a really weird thing. You can't really learn how to do a thing unless you can do the thing. So you kind of have to fail a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had one editor tell me like unequivocally, like, yeah, we're just not really you're not a cover artist guy. We've got better people for that.
Yeah.
And it really, it hurts when somebody's like, like, I want to do this thing. And somebody's like, well, you're not that person. We're not going to do that.
Yeah,
definitely. We're not going to pay you to draw covers.
Kind of hurts that ego a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're like, let me try. Give me a chance.
Yeah.
And so I did the series The Beauty that I co-wrote with Jason Hurley, my buddy.
Yeah.
I drew the first arc of that series, 6 issues. But then we did 30 issues of that series all together. Wow. And I drew every cover. I all told, even like bonus covers and stuff like that, I think I drew like 35 covers for The Beauty.
Oh, wow.
And that last cover, which is kind of a callback to the first cover.
Uh-huh.
And they were all based on like the idea of like, like if the concept of The Beauty is about an STD that makes you beautiful, an STI that makes you beautiful, right?
Okay.
So people catch this disease because they want their vein, but then, there's always consequences for everything.
Right.
And but so the covers were like high fashion covers, like beautiful, like what you'd see on Vogue or any number of magazines.
Right.
But the people were like dead from the beauty. And like when you die from the beauty, you become this like almost like statuesque dead thing.
Okay.
And I drew 35 covers. And that last cover that I did, issue 30, I was like, this is who I wanted to be. This is who I was trying to be all through that process and like learning to be. And that was, by that point, I was regularly drawing covers for other companies. Since then, I've drawn covers for every major company out there now and really had a great experience with it. So I think that's, for me, that was the accomplishment, was like getting to the point where someone said, "Oh, you're not really this guy." And I'm like, no, I get to choose who I am. I'm going to, I want to be
right.
someone who can draw covers and do a good job with it, and it seems to work for me. So
I like that. Yeah. No, like you said, you every single one of them, man, and you do amazing work. And we are kind of coming up close to a close here.
Yeah.
I have just a few more things I wanted to ask you about.
Sure.
One of them might be a little bit of a problematic question, but I think it'll be all right. What is the weirdest thing you have been asked at a con?
Man, I've been asked some weird stuff. You know, occasionally you get people that ask you to draw stuff that you're like, I don't really want to draw that.
Yeah.
I understand that we all have different things that we like and different tastes and different things that maybe we want to hang on our walls, but I am pretty good at navigating saying no to
That's
things.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a fun. There was one guy that one year I was at San Diego Comic Con, and this guy came up, and look, we're all different. We're all wired differently, and I have respect for that, and I have to understand that like we all react to things differently and interact in different ways. But this guy came up, and I'm sitting there at my table, and he's like, I don't really like any of your stuff.
Oh.
And I'm like, wow, okay. Okay. And like you're at a convention, you want to be respectful to everybody. You want to be nice and kind and understanding again that like we're all wired differently, right?
Right.
This guy comes up and so he's like, I don't really like your stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like this is not for everybody, like
yeah.
Move along. And he didn't move along.
Oh, no.
Talk to me about why he didn't like my stuff.
Oh,
but
no.
in no certain terms. I don't know. It's just not very good. And so over Comic-Con's like a what, 5-day event. It's like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's like
yeah,
4 days, but still,
it's
like
long.
the preview night, and there's all this stuff. And this guy came back like every day, and he's just like, yeah, I don't. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, who paid you to come over and just make me feel like hot garbage? So yeah, I mean,
wow.
While I've been asked to draw weird stuff and had people be strange and all the things, I think the one that sticks out for me most was that poor dude. I hope he's doing well. I hope that he's found some art that he loves and is a happy whole person for it. But yeah.
Did he go into like detail on like, well, I don't like this about it, or is it just like, yeah, this just nope, good?
It was more like just really kind of general stuff. I kept waiting for him to be like, I don't know, I'm more of a. There's always this dumb thing in comics where people seem to think that like their particular thing that they like or they create, if an artist is a cartoony person, they want to talk about how that realistic art is less, or if a person is a realistic artist, they want to be like, oh, it's cartoony stuff, it's stupid. I'm like, I like it all, and I because I draw the way I do or whatever I do, it doesn't make me any more or less than anybody else. Anybody that's actually sitting there telling you too much that something is worth less because of the way it is probably trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a lot of patience for it. But yeah, this guy just didn't really have an explanation. It wasn't like, oh, it's too realistic, or oh, it's too clunky, or oh, it's just didn't like it, and he just wanted to repeat the fact that he just didn't. I don't know. Like he's like, yeah, just look at this piece. I don't know. I just don't like it. I'm like, you can still move along. It's day 3 of you just coming back. But he came back for day 4. So
it makes me wonder if he was like, did he want to fight, or was he trying to start something, or like you said, did somebody pay him to do this and were you just getting punked or something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where Ashton Kutcher was, but
yeah,
he did not show up. But I will say this, I'm not like this industry loves, and I'm not just talking about comics, I'm talking about fandom in a way. We love to fight over stuff. I witnessed two friends that I've known for years dissolve their friendship over an argument over a stupid movie. I don't even remember what the movie was now. It was probably a Star Wars or something like that.
Wow.
But like, they just tore into each other. We're not really great at realizing that like we all like things. We all like things in different ways. We all,
So some people have a really hard time with being, they want to be right with everything.
Right. Well, but here's the thing, dude. While you and I could get in a fist fight over ice cream flavors, what's the point?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I would prefer to be like, hey, I'm glad you love that thing so much.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Exactly.
So I don't know. It's a weird thing. We all like things different, different in different ways. Just celebrate.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I mean, if it was, on certain, there are subjects that you can lose friends over, and it's okay because of, whatever. But when it comes to little things like that, no, just everybody's different. Everybody's going to have their own opinion, their own preference to something, and you can still be friends with those people. And I've seen that a lot of times. Even I work a lot with wrestling companies around this area, and things like that. And my wife tells me all the time that wrestling has more drama than any girl that she knows. And and it's usually over little things. And I'm just like, I say it all the time. Can we all just get along? Maybe you don't like it that way. That's okay. But let's just all get along because we all have something that we enjoy together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
All right, man. Well, I have just a couple more here, and then we're going to get you off of here. Do you have anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I am in an amazing, exciting spot with some great stuff coming up.
Okay.
I can't talk about any of it right now.
Oh, okay.
I hate that. This is the worst. Like, it's hard whenever you're having a great chat with people and you're like, hey, I want to talk about this thing. What I'm building is coming up. I encourage if you've liked this talk at all and you don't think I'm too much of a congenital idiot, check out, I'm going to be making some cool announcements. Hopefully some of them are sooner rather than later, but I've worked for a long, long time to build a cool path for myself.
Yeah.
I have been very fortunate and had the support of friends and family, peers, that guy at the convention that didn't like my stuff. But this 2024 and 2025 are going to be absolutely life-changing, and I'm incredibly excited for it.
Awesome.
And I'm sorry that I have to be so vague about it.
No, that's fine. I'm excited to see what's happening. And if people want to follow you so they can see what's going on, how can they do that?
Look, without getting too preachy at all of you wonderful people that are listening, social media is kind of a mess right now. I don't know if you're aware of it. That's kind of going weird. The best way that you can generally follow any creator that you like their voice, not the timbre, but just the way they talk about things or whatever it is, you like the things they make, probably sign up for their newsletter. And you can go to jeremyhaun.com. It's just my name, JeremyHaun.com. You can see my website. You can see some samples of stuff, examples of the art that I make, information about the books that I've made. But you can get on my newsletter, and everybody's got a newsletter right now. I try to make mine at least moderately interesting every time. You get some of the pictures that we've discussed, you get some art, you get some commentary on where I've been and what I'm doing and what's coming up. It's a great way to interact directly. So stop by the site, sign up for my newsletter. I promise you, if you hate it, you can unsubscribe.
All right, man. You have any final thoughts before I get you off of here?
This has been fun. I really like it. I'm glad that we were able to do it. We originally scheduled this, and I had to go to LA for work. So I'm glad that we were able to reschedule and make it happen.
Definitely. All right, man. Well, it's been a blast talking to you. I've really enjoyed this. Maybe we can get you to come back on and we can have some more conversations like this.
Yeah, let's do this again whenever, in just a few months, whenever all this craziness happens. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, I will talk to you a few minutes after we end this recording, but we're going to go ahead and sign off from here for now. And like I said, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jared.
Wrestling fans, Diamond State Wrestling returns to the Diamond Dome on Saturday, June 15th with exciting professional wrestling action. The Diamond Dome is located beside the Next Level Soccer Center. Catch the stars of Diamond State Wrestling like Pineapple Jack, classically violent William J. Blackwell, and the Diamond State Heavyweight Champion, the Ruthless King, Alexander Gold. Ticket prices start at $15. You can get information and purchase tickets at DiamondStateWrestling.com.
Hello there. While I have your attention, let me introduce myself. My name is Colby Cheese. I'm a content creator at TikTok with over 1.6 million followers, husband, comic book collector, and avid wrestling fan. And if you are listening to this, that means you must be a wrestling fan too. We will be discussing all of the wrestling from Monday Night Raw to Friday Night SmackDown, those AEW Wednesdays to those PLEs on the weekends that we have to wake up at 11 a.m. for. And that's only at Wrestling with Colby Cheese.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Jeremy Haun, and I can't wait to bring him back on here in a few months so we can talk about all those things that he couldn't really talk about. I'm excited to see what happens next with him. But next week's episode is going to be a lot of fun as well. I am bringing on a man that I met at ArtCon. I am bringing on a man that I met at PTXCon. He is a voice actor. As you know, I am a big fan of My Hero Academia, and I'm a millennial. So this one is a double whammy for me. He's part of My Hero Academia. He plays the voice of Spinner. He was also the voice of Wishbone, the Jack Russell Terrier from PBS that I used to watch as a kid. He was the voice of this dog on the show. Some of you might remember it, and some of you might not. But if you do, then you're going to enjoy this one as well. We talk about all that cool stuff. We talk about My Hero Academia and the other voices that he's done over the years. But that's next week's episode, and I hope that you come back and listen to that one. But as you're waiting for another episode to drop of If You Give a Dad a Podcast, why don't you go check out my podcast networks that I'm a part of, the OIW Podcast Network, the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network, and the Avenue Podcast Network. They all have amazing stuff that you can find on their websites that I have in my show notes, and you guys should go check them out. They're a lot of fun to listen to, and they have all unique stuff to them, no matter what it is that you're looking for. Still don't have the website up for the merch, but if you do want a shirt or something from me, just send me a message on social media, or you can send me an email, and I'll get that stuff shipped out to you just as soon as I can. Just tell me the size you need and where to ship it to, and we'll work out the rest of the details. And as I'm saying that, you're probably like, well, how do I get a hold of you on social media? How do I email you? Well, you can send an email to giveadatapodcast@gmail.com, or if you want to send me a message on any of social media, just look me up on the search bar, and if you're not already following me, and just type in If You Give a Dad a Podcast, you should be able to find me there as well. Or I've made it kind of simple for you. You can go to the bottom of my show notes here, click on my link tree. All of my socials are on there, as well as my email address. But yeah, if you want any of that stuff, just hit me up. My wife makes all my merch. As you will see, her name actually changed recently. It's not Cups and Teas by Stasha anymore. It's Stickers by Stasha. And she's been doing a lot of that. She's gotten some really cool stuff going on with the stickers, and she can make hats and she can make shirts. But so far, the stickers have been really hitting, and doing really well for her. I'm very proud of her for, working hard at that and building up that business. She's doing an amazing job with that. So at the end of my episode, you hear a song, and that is made by a man by the name of D-Cure. I met him on TikTok. He does really funny jokes on there, kind of punny type stuff, and he also makes music. Well, I think it was in my first 10 episodes, I had him on the show. And we talked about Pokemon, and we talked about TikTok, and we talked about hip-hop. And by the end of it, we were starting to follow each other on all different social medias. And he made me this song. And so at the end of it, you hear the song that he made for me. And I just want to say thank you to him for creating it. And if you like the way his stuff sounds, I have his website tagged in my show notes. Go and follow him. He makes amazing stuff. The next time you can actually see me in person is in Jonesboro, Arkansas at Nerds AssembleCon with Original Geek Comics. We will be there July 27th and 28th. Make sure that you can come out and see us there. Come say hi, get you a comic book, get you a t-shirt. It's going to be a great time. I think you guys will really enjoy showing up at this and, interacting with all these different people. There's going to be some really cool guests there along with us as well, so make sure you can try and come out to that. We've got some other live events that are coming up. I'll announce them as they get closer. So as you know, I have expanded my brand to 2 other branches, and that's If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel and If You Give a Dad a Cosplay. Those are both ran by some of my really good friends. It is ran by Ty Tiger and Cosplay Dude 637. They create really good content. They give you tips on how to create YouTube videos or how to do cosplay or how to use a green screen. All stuff that, I could probably use myself. And so I go and find myself watching these videos and learning stuff as well. And if you want to learn more stuff when it comes to creating a YouTube channel or creating your own cosplay, go and check them out. I have them in my show notes. If you could, do me a favor, rate and review this podcast. Tell me what you think. The more people that do that, the more likely I am to be recommended to other people. And the more people I'm recommended to, the more people that listen to this show. And that's a good thing. We want more people to listen to it. And I just appreciate you guys so much. You've done so much already. And just continue to listen and review this and tell me how I'm doing. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Hit the notification bell wherever it is you're listening. That way you are notified when a new episode drops of this show. So, we've come to the end of another episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast, and it is time for Billy's favorite part of the episode, and that is Dad Joke of the Week. Why are snails bad at races? Because they're a little sluggish.
Seriously?
All right. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week. I will see you next time. Bye.
Room rounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, though we're blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I need a connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.
Wait. Can you put a timer up here?